Good afternoon from Geneva. I'm Sandy Roger from the Toilet Board Coalition, and yesterday was World Toilet Day, and now we're into the second day of our 3-day virtual toilet summit. And that's an amazing event comprising webinars like this one, launches of new reports, announcements, insights, experts, lots of content on the sanitation economy, which is our vision for the future of sanitation, that view of sanitation which converts it from a public cost, and in many parts of the world an unaffordable public cost, into a business opportunity. And you can see on the screen the three components of the sanitation economy: the toilet economy, the circular sanitation economy, and the smart sanitation economy. And these come together as the sanitation economy. So today, we've already had 3 sessions on the circular sanitation economy, and we've learned in those sessions that there really are business models in sanitation, business models that can make a profit, business models that are investable. And that leads us naturally to the question of how you can scale up and invest in these businesses. So this session is on the pathways to profitability and the innovative financing models in the sanitation sector. And our Executive Director, Cheryl Hicks, is going to moderate the session. So Cheryl, over to you.
Great, thanks, Andy. Yes, we've had a fantastic 2 days so far. Our theme is transformation via the sanitation economy. We've really tried to focus on what businesses are doing to build the sanitation economy, both large businesses and small businesses, making up a really exciting new ecosystem for business and investment opportunity. And of course, investment is the key here to scale up. And so this year in the Toilet Board's Toilet Accelerator program, we've made an effort to really focus on investability. We have a fantastic panel here of experts that have been working with us on investability specifically for sanitation businesses. We're going to hear from them. We also have 2 of our Accelerator businesses who are investment ready right now. For those investors listening in, you're going to want to hear from these businesses and not miss out on these exciting investment opportunities in the sanitation economy. And so first, to kick off, I'm going to ask our steering committee member from USAID, Portia Persley, who we have a video recording of, to speak to us a little bit about her perspective on investability of sanitation businesses, because Portia also takes a lead in our Investment Review Committee, which is a committee that invites investors interested in the sanitation sector, the sanitation economy sectors more broadly. As you've been learning, it's more than just toilets. It's also circular sanitation and smart sanitation. So I've asked Portia to talk about some of the investment mechanisms that USAID has been helping us to try and unlock for sanitation.
Of our 2018 support for the Toilet Board Coalition, as I joined the steering committee and learned about the TBC's interest in sort of shining a bright light on investability and understanding how it could support current and past year's cohorts in their quest to gain access to capital. I think I was able to identify an additional mechanism that we have here in our USAID Water Office Toolbox, which is the WASH-FIN, WASH Financing Support Technical Assistance Contract. The focus of that contract and that team is to really focus and help to strengthen creditworthiness and investability for water and sanitation-focused companies, not just companies, but also local governments, and to engage with financing institutions to help to identify potential opportunities for investment and to connect those WASH-focused companies who offer a product or service to the financing institutions that are able to provide that capital access. So I think it's bringing WASH-FIN to the table and sort of helping to identify a sort of line of technical support for these cohorts so that they can understand what are the key steps and the requirements in terms of getting access to financing, seemed to bring some added benefits. WashFan has done things like review business models, provide input to help strengthen that model. I think importantly to cohorts that they've worked with, identifying where there are gaps in the model in terms of, for example, being able to demonstrate and identify all the sort of flows of revenues. For example, Tiger Toilets has a technical solution that has both a household and community level impact, and making sure that all of those revenue flows and all those potential markets are represented in the business model. So I think from that, and also in terms of coaching them to help them prepare to present to investors, helping them to link to financial institutions. I think WashFin, and I know that also EY has been providing similar support to the toilet board cohorts. I think has been a great way to sort of round out and help to provide a foundation for the support and our increased focus on creditworthiness and access to capital, and trying to put ourselves in a position to help our cohorts get to a transaction so that they can get access to the capital that they need in order to scale their business solution.
Great. So I think a good message from Portia there, that the sector has struggled, I think, to attract investment, and so this focus on investability on the one hand, making sure that we present a pipeline of interesting businesses in the sector to investors, but also making sure that we have mechanisms that can adequately support the sector, which is what USAID has been working with us on, and leveraging their vast network, which is really encouraging. I'd like to go now to EY and Jessie Coates. Jessie, EY has has vast expertise working across sectors on exactly this issue, really helping to highlight the investability of businesses and especially in emerging markets. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you do that and the work that you've been doing with our sanitation businesses this year, and what you found in the sector that might be both learnings for other entrepreneurs to ensure their investability, but also for investors to understand a little bit more about the opportunities in the sector?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Thanks, Cheryl. And just to say thank you to the Toilet Board Coalition for putting on this this fantastic virtual summit. As Cheryl introduced, I'm Jessie Coates. I'm an Associate Director at EY. I head up the work that we do to support impact entrepreneurs globally. And as Cheryl alluded to, we've been working very closely with the Toilet Board Coalition for many months now to support the Toilet Accelerator cohort. And we actually, I lead our consulting practice, our low bono consulting practice that extends our services to impact entrepreneurs. And we do that at a nominal fee. And we typically support early stage businesses to refine their business models and growth stage businesses to establish their systems and processes that they need to scale. And when we've worked with the Toilet Accelerator cohort, and we've worked now with the likes of Tiger Toilet, with Garv, Sanogy, Sanitation, and Clean Team, we've typically focused on exactly this point around how to help them to define their unit economics, define their pathway to profitability, and help them get ready for investment. So I'm really pleased to share kind of just a few of our learnings about the sanitation sector and about those sanitation business models that we've worked with, and perhaps share a few recommendations as well for other sanitation businesses. In terms of learnings, I have three. Really, I have many more, but to try and boil it down in time. The first is that I think when thinking about sanitation, it's really important to take a step back and recognize that in an advanced economy setting, we typically take for granted the fact that our sanitation services, our sewers, our waste management treatments are public services and therefore are government funded or at least subsidized. And so I think it's really important from an investability perspective when we're thinking about new sanitation models, particularly in emerging economies, that we don't or that investors don't place unrealistic or unnecessary expectations that these services should be commercially viable in all situations. I think some may well be, others will not be. And so commercial financing is absolutely required for growth. It's not the only thing, and public subsidy is critically important. I think the second learning from working directly with many of the Toilet Accelerator cohort is that we know that sanitation businesses can be and are investable, some with public subsidy and many without. But sanitation businesses are tough businesses to crack. They rely fundamentally on scale to achieve investability. And that's typically because you have consumers with low purchasing power, relatively high capital costs. And so businesses have to be highly efficient to be investable. But the good news, as we all know, is that scale is absolutely achievable because the social need is huge and the market is huge as well. And I think the Toilet Board Coalition have done a fantastic job of articulating the scale of that market. And the third set of learnings from working directly with the Toilet Accelerator cohort is that these sanitation businesses are constantly innovating to improve investability. And what we've seen is a number of trends around how they're doing that. Firstly, driving ever greater cost efficiency. So, for example, we've seen businesses developing partnerships which enable them to spread cost and risk. We've seen businesses working to optimize their supply chain at every step to look to drive greater efficiency. We've also seen a lot of sanitation businesses innovating new revenue models to kind of prop up and bolster margins. So, for example, we've seen businesses monetizing assets, monetizing data, which enables them to kind of pursue additional revenue streams, value-adding revenue streams like advertising, for example. And we've also seen a lot of sanitation businesses developing partnerships to attract a wider customer base. And I guess just to kind of wrap up in terms of recommendations or advice to other sanitation businesses around how to approach and get ready for investment. I think for us, we see this as a two-stage process. The first is that it's critically important to have a really detailed grasp of your unit economics because so many sanitation businesses absolutely rely on scale. So it's really important to have an understanding of your unit economics bottom up, the real economics, not the kind of original plan, because typically in practice it can look very different. It's then really important to be able to fully grasp your pathway to profitability. So what is your break-even point? And typically that might be, how many customers do you need to break even? And is that feasible in the market that you're operating in? And similarly, at what point do you see that you will be able to provide a return to investors? These are the things that investors are really looking for. And these are the things that all of the businesses that we've worked with through the Toilet Accelerator cohort are already grasping and already clearly articulating. I'll stop there.
Yeah. Thank you, Jessie. I just want to pick up on one thing because I think that's something that does come up time and again in the sanitation sector. Many businesses have been donor funded at the beginning, which has been necessary. That was the funding available. And as they move from donor funding to commercial investment, I know we've talked in the past about the importance of margins. And I think that I'd love for you to come back to that point a little bit later on. But before we do that, I want to focus on hearing from the businesses in the cohort, Tiger Toilets and Biomass Controls, because critical, obviously, to getting to positive margins is that understanding of unit economics and pathways to profitability. So if I could go next to Magnesh. Magnesh, you're sitting in Mumbai together with our Accelerator cohort director, Venu Gupta. And Magnesh, Tiger Toilets has been on an incredible journey, a lot of excitement around Tiger Toilets and your model. How have you been working on this this transition from a business who were providing toilets, providing a service, removing waste from society, providing another service, to a commercially investable model?
Right. So first thing is from being a cohort, what we really learned is the convergence of, as Jessie said, of the social need and the market need. Because often sanitation was looked at as a social need, but it never had market solutions. So that kind of insight, and not just an insight, but an ability to convert that insight into a business model, was a great, I would say, contribution and an achievement by way of working with the Toilet Board Coalition. Broadly, it so happened with us that we could learn a substantial quantum of detailing, as again Jessie mentioned, that the unit economics never meant of what your original plan was, but the level of detail and the level of, I would say, a kind of holistic modeling of various business parameters and the business costs. So while we worked for last 1 year on this whole project, and then we turned into an investable model, it was a great insight for understanding the distribution logistics, the cost and the effort for developing channel partners, understanding the inventories, sales and marketing costs, which are far more broader than what you understand, developing the supply chain, which is not an established one like many other businesses, and more so with the partnerships which we had, mentors which we had, post-sales monitoring as one of the major product strengthening mechanism, and also in post-sales monitoring, understanding the statistical quality control principles, incorporating those principles to bring more customer confidence and investor confidence in the product. So that's a larger list, but I have summarized some of those.
Thank you, Magnesh. I think a lot of really interesting learnings there, distribution, logistics, channel partners, marketing, and post-sales monitoring. So really, I think really good points. And so now can we go to Jeff, and talk to us a little bit about biomass controls, Jeff, and your solution, and again, your pathway to profitability, what you've learned and what might be helpful to other entrepreneurs in the space.
Thank you, Cheryl. What we've learned is really to focus on the unit economics, is looking at lifetime value. And so the circular economy is not an event, it's a journey. And so you have to match the value to what you're delivering. And so what we've looked initially was more of a sale model where we were selling products, and now we're actually providing long-term leases that match the capital investment with the some of the maintenance costs as well, so that we stay in touch with our customer and that we're adding value through, and that we're also looking for opportunities to not only improve customer satisfaction, but to improve our products and our offerings so that we can continue to fine tune it. What we've realized is that there's, the minimum viable product changes in different settings. And so you have to be flexible to be able to do that.
Thank you. So just, for those that haven't yet tuned in, just to explain a little bit about Tiger Toilets and biomass controls, both in the circular sanitation economy, which is the theme of our day 2 of the virtual summit. Tiger Toilets, an innovative toilet and waste management model, or circular management model, using tiger worms to break down the waste, and biomass controls with an innovative control system for waste management businesses. And I'd like you to say a little bit more about your businesses and maybe some of that uniqueness for investors in this next round. So Jeff, maybe coming back to you, why should an investor be interested in biomass controls? What is your unique offering to the market?
So our unique offering is we do thermal treatment, not only for liquid by pasteurization, but also for the solids and also for menstrual hygiene management. So the important thing for us is you've got all these toilets going in now, which is great for the economy, but now you need treatment. So without treatment, you're not going to be able to prevent the disease, which is really the impact that investors are looking for. So toilets by themselves are not going to give the impact. What's going to keep girls in school and what's going to help reduce disease in the marketplace is the treatment side. And that's what we really offer, is distributed, not in non-sewer sanitation for those different markets, anywhere from, desert all the way up to Arctic conditions.
Thank you. And just the last point about your sales this year. I know you've had a tremendous growth curve this year, quick note for investors on your growth.
Sure. So we're continuing on the hockey stick. We've pretty much doubled every year. We've already exceeded our growth for this year. Will be a little over, probably right around $3 million for this year. And so that's going very well. So demand is high. I think the key is to make sure that you have profitable growth. I think the key to our success has been our people. We've been bringing in some really great folks that are really good in the marketplace, that have good relationships. And I think part of this is relationships are really important, but also management through the smart sanitation economy, that if you're not measuring what you're doing, you're not going to be able to scale. And so we've learned that working with banks and some of the investors is they're really looking for 3 years of data. So I would tell an entrepreneur now that if you're starting now, start collecting data, because as you move forward and you start working with folks like WashFin and EY, they're going to ask you for this data. And if you haven't been collecting it, it's going to be really hard for them to help you do that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeff. A really key point. 3 years of track record of historical data, financial data, and the data that investors need to see is really key. Thank you, Jeff. Maybe back, Magnesh, to you. Same question about your unique offering to the market and to investors, and a little bit about your growth over this year.
Right. So we did have a great growth, and numbers Tiger toilets sold were nearly double the previous year. But a multiplier of 2 is too little, I would say, for the investors to understand, because it's time, especially in India, after you had Swachh Bharat mission, the Clean India mission coming in, the degree of awareness went high, as well as if the investors look at a very, very exponentially large market, informal housing in a decentralized sanitation system, especially when the cities cannot afford to lay the larger networks, the urban growth or the peri-urban growth in larger countries like India and developing world are now far outweigh the formal conventional housing. So that's the market which is all open for the decentralized solutions like Tiger toilets. And for sure, when we convert them into compost and the nutrients come back and the water is available for reuse or recycling, that's a great opportunity, and from a circular economy perspective. So there's a great deal of attraction for the investors to come in.
Thank you, Magnesh. Absolutely, and I think both of you touched on, really sort of the triple win here of the sanitation economy business models, that you're able to incorporate the importance of toilets, circular resource management, and new technologies, which both of you are doing. So fantastic and very exciting models for those investors that are listening. I want to go next to Venu Gupta, who is our director of the Accelerator program. You've been working across the businesses this year, Venu, on the economics. You've written a really, I think, insightful paper on the pathways to profitability for our sanitation economy businesses in particular. Can you sort of highlight from your perspective kind of what you've seen coming into this year's cohort and what you're seeing now based on that work that's been done? I should say that Venu also has a career of experience working with small businesses across different sectors and getting them some significant investment for growth. So Venu, tell us what you've learned about the sector and the cohort businesses this year.
Yeah, sure, Cheryl. So I think there were 2 key pieces, like you mentioned. One was the unit economics study, and then also the pathways to profitability study. I know they sound a bit more technical than they should, but unit economics study is what we simply try to understood what the costs are in serving one customer before we try and serve multiple customers, before we try and scale up. And in the unit economics study, we asked questions, we did an analysis to understand what the direct costs are to serving one customer as a means to forecast, as a means to predict, as a means to manage how we plan to serve multiple customers, how do we plan to scale up. In fact, some of the questions that the unit economics study threw up for us, in for example, Tiger toilets, as well as biomass controls, helped us re-examine the whole business model and helped us re-examine how we should be approaching the business model even at this stage, before raising investment for scaling up. Because at the end of a unit economics study is a very simple gross margin figure, and a high gross margin figure indicates that there is strength in the business model to scale up, that there is strength to grow. Beyond the unit economics, what was really interesting was, then moving forward, and we got a lot of help from Ernst & Young, EY on this, and Washfin on this, is to predict the future, 3 years out, 5 years out, and to see how the costs will play out, to see how the revenues will play out. And we discovered that over a 3 to 5 year period, really the focus has to be on increasing and diversifying multiple revenue streams and creating a bouquet of sorts on the revenue front. And at the same time, on the cost front, there have to be opportunities of realizing economies of scale. There have to be opportunities where you can reduce your direct costs, even further, whether it is more efficient procurement of products, more efficient procurement of raw materials, or if it's like in the case of biomass controls, I think it's also to do with the fact that the whole smart tech, the incremental cost of serving that smart technology to another customer is practically zero. So I think a lot of these things, I think apart from just the financial analysis of it and becoming comfortable with the numbers, I think a lot of benefit was around, asking questions that needed to be asked for these really seemingly social businesses to think more like, social entrepreneurship businesses.
Great, thanks, Venu. And I think finally we're running out of time here, but I want to go back to Jessie on that note on margins. You picked up on it there, Venu, and to hear from Jessie on what you've learned about the importance of focusing on margins in these businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, margin is king, and exactly as Venu said, for businesses that rely on scale, the first piece is to understand and make sure that you have a positive gross margin. And I mean, when you strip it all back, that fundamentally relies on one of two things: either being able to increase your revenues or being able to reduce your costs. And I think what's so incredible about these two businesses is that they've had that laser focus on actually driving down costs at the same time as improving and propping up their revenue streams to drive that margin. And the final thing I would say is, what's so incredible about these two businesses is not just that they're enabling their own kind of models to become profitable. It's that they're actually transforming the entire industries that they're working in. You consider Tiger Toilet. I mean, one of the challenges of waste collection is fundamentally the fact that the logistics and distribution of collecting waste is so expensive. So actually having a model which removes the need for waste collection entirely is transformative to that waste collection industry. And similarly with biomass controls, you're taking an industry in kind of waste management, which is traditionally considered a cost center, and actually transforming that into a profit center where potentially you're actually creating resources and energy out of it. And I think it's that kind of transformative nature of these businesses, not just for their individual business models, but for the economics of the entire industry, that for me, if I was an investor, I would genuinely be taking a long, hard look at these businesses.
I think that's a great point to end on. You've talked about transformation. That's the theme of our virtual summit: transformation via the sanitation economy. Thank you, Jessie, for that. And we're also seeing, I think, transformation in how companies are looking at their own pathways to profitability and financing models. So I think we're out of time for this session, but hopefully a little teaser for investors interested in the sector. I think you've got some great food for thought here, and back over to Sandy to close the session.
Cheryl, thanks, and thanks to all of you for a really interesting session there. And if you think of the course of today, if you haven't already seen the sessions live, do go on to our website, toiletboard.org, and take a look. We heard from Laurent Auguste from Veolia that we should stop talking about waste and talk about resources. We heard about how the sanitation economy applied in agriculture can not only provide sanitation, but at the same time improve the economics and the environmental performance of a plantation. And then we've had 2 sessions talking about small businesses developing new models, new technologies, working out where is the top line and where is the bottom line and where can they get investment into the sector with a whole variety of different approaches in different ways. So, you know, if anyone came into today in any doubt that there was real business to be made here, real business models, I think we've put that to rest, and it's really interesting to see how large and small businesses are involved and how they're working together, collaborating here, and that kind of system of large and small businesses really is what the Toilet Board is all about. So that's the Circular Economy Day of the World Toilet Summit. Tomorrow we move on to the Smart Economy Day. We're going to start by announcing our new cohort of small businesses that we're working with for next year, which is a very exciting time as we bring some new members into the Toilet Board family for a year ahead. And then we're going to talk really about the smart sanitation economy, launching our report about the world's first smart sanitation city. So you've heard of a smart city, but this is a smart sanitation city. That's Pune in India. We'll be launching our report. And then 2 more webinars looking in depth at how the smart sanitation economy can work, bringing in people like the European Space Agency, MIT, the kind of people who are transforming other industries. Why not have them transform sanitation as well? And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. So all of that is on toiletboard.org or will be tomorrow. Do have a look at this content. Do get in touch with us. But for today, thank you very much.